Ever lost a sock in the dryer and just let it go? Yeah, you're weak. Because somewhere in America, a judge sued his dry cleaner for $54 million over one lost pair of pants. And that's not even the craziest one on this list. A Nebraska senator literally sued God as in the Almighty. A guy mailed Pepsi a check demanding the $23 million fighter jet he won with Pepsi points. Some legend sued himself for $5 million and then asked the state to pay it. And PETA, yes, actual lawyers, went to court arguing a monkey owns the copyright to its own selfie. These are 100% real, they actually happened. And by the end, you're gonna feel dumb for not suing someone already. So do me a favor, smash that subscribe, because I've got 71 of these, and if you leave now, you'll never find out how a court legally declared a house haunted. Let's go. 1. A Nebraska senator sued God. Yes, God, the actual Almighty, defendant number 1, accused of causing floods, tornadoes, and general chaos. The senator wanted a court order to make him knock it off. Bold move, suing the one guy who invented courtrooms. But here's the beautiful part. The case got tossed because God has no known address to serve the papers to. Think about that. Not because it was insane, not because you can't subpoena the divine. No, a technicality. The lawyer's mistake was clerical. Somewhere, a Nebraska judge wrote, "Cannot locate defendant," about the omnipresent creator of the universe. Chef's kiss. 2. The Supreme Court, the highest court in America, robes and all, sat down to answer the burning question tearing the nation apart. Is a tomato a fruit or a vegetable? And how did these legal titans crack it? Botany? Science? Nope. They read dictionaries out loud in the courtroom. Grown adults taking turns reading definitions like a very tense book club. They ruled it's a vegetable because that's how people eat it, ignoring the tiny detail that biologically it's a fruit. So legally, science lost to salad. Your 4th grade teacher was technically overruled by the Supreme Court. Justice, apparently, tastes like ketchup. 3. A man saw a Pepsi commercial promising you could trade Pepsi points for cool prizes. At the end, as a joke, they flashed a Harrier fighter jet for 7 million points. This man did not laugh. This man did math. He found a loophole, gathered the points, cut a check for the difference, and demanded his $23 million military aircraft. Pepsi said it was obviously a joke. He said contracts are contracts. So a real courtroom had to seriously debate whether a soda company owed a civilian a war machine. The judge said no. Somewhere, a very determined man is still bitter about it. 4. A couple bought a house in New York, then discovered the seller had spent years publicly telling everyone the place was haunted. Featured it in the newspaper, ran ghost tours, the whole spooky spectacle. The new owners wanted out, arguing nobody warned them. And the court agreed in the most magnificent way possible. It ruled the house was legally haunted. Not scientifically, not spiritually. Legally. A judge officially declared, as a matter of law, that ghosts lived there, because the seller had said so for so long she couldn't suddenly claim otherwise. That's right. In New York, you can lie a house into being haunted. Genuinely incredible. 5. A homeowner was sick of burglars, so he rigged a spring-loaded shotgun in an empty house, booby trap style, aimed to fire at anyone who opened the door. Sure enough, a burglar broke in and got blasted in the leg. Justice, right? Wrong? The burglar sued. And the burglar won. The court ruled you cannot set a mechanical trap to hurt someone, even a criminal, because a machine can't judge whether deadly force is actually warranted. So the trespasser walked away with damages. The lesson every law student now learns. You're legally safer letting the thief rob you than outsmarting him with hardware. Wonderful. 6. An inmate, clearly bored, sued the single most creative defendant available, himself. He claimed he'd violated his own civil rights by getting drunk and committing the crime that landed him in prison. His demand? $5 million. Then, in a plot twist of pure genius, he admitted he had no income, being incarcerated and all. So he asked the state to pay the settlement on his behalf. Read that again. He sued himself, planned to win, then build the government. The court declined this masterpiece. But honestly, the ambition, The audacity. This man looked at the legal system and found a loophole in his own existence. 7. For over 80 years, a company collected money every single time Happy Birthday was sung in a movie, show, or commercial. 80 years. That little song you butcher over a supermarket cake? Someone was cashing checks on it. Filmmakers paid thousands just to have characters sing it, which is why old movies awkwardly avoid it entirely. Then, a documentary maker got fed up, dug into the paperwork, and dragged it to court. And a judge ruled the copyright was bogus all along. The company never actually owned it. 80 years of fees, built on nothing. The song was set free. Sing away, you beautiful off-key rebels. 8. A monkey picked up a photographer's camera and snapped a selfie. A grinning, iconic, genuinely great selfie. Then things got stupid. PETA marched into federal court and argued that the monkey, not the human, owned the copyright and demanded the profits be managed on the animal's behalf. So lawyers, real lawyers with degrees, stood before a judge to debate whether a monkey can hold intellectual property. The court said no, animals can't own copyrights. Shocking, I know. But somewhere there's a court transcript solemnly discussing a monkey's legal earnings. The monkey, for the record, never asked for any of this. He just wanted a photo. 9. A judge, a man who spends his life inside courtrooms, took his pants to the dry cleaner. They lost them. One pair of pants. So naturally, he sued for $54 million. Not a typo. 54 million. His logic hinged on a satisfaction guaranteed sign, which he interpreted as a blank check for financial annihilation over some slacks. This dragged on for years, tanked the immigrant family's small business in legal fees, and made him a global punchline. He lost, obviously. A grown judge weaponizing the entire legal system over trousers. If anyone should have known better, it was the guy wearing the robe. 10. A man happened to look a bit like Michael Jordan. Not identical, just vaguely, if you squint, in bad lighting. Most people would take that as a free compliment. This man took it to court. He sued Michael Jordan and Nike for $416 million, claiming the emotional distress of being mistaken for one of the most beloved athletes alive. The trauma of strangers thinking you're rich, famous, and good at basketball, truly harrowing. The case was dismissed because you resemble a legend is not in fact a crime committed against you. Some people get handed lemons. This man got handed compliments and sued. 11. A California court, faced with all the pressing issues of modern life, made a ruling for the ages. The bumblebee is legally a fish. A fish, the flying, buzzing, distinctly not aquatic insect. Why? Because an old conservation law protected fish, and the wording was vague enough to technically include invertebrates. So rather than admit the law needed fixing, the court just reclassified a bee. Now, in the eyes of California law, that thing pollinating your garden is swimming. Marine biologists everywhere quietly wept. It's a beautiful reminder that the legal system, when cornered, will not hesitate to declare that up is down and bees are trout. 12. A man watched beer commercials. You know the ones, gorgeous people, beaches, women materializing out of thin air the second someone cracks a cold one. He drank the beer. The women did not appear. His life remained tragically the same. So he sued the brewery for false advertising, genuinely arguing the ads promised him a social paradise that beer failed to deliver. He wanted damages for the crushing gap between the commercial and his actual living room. The court, holding back laughter, said no. Ads exaggerate, that's the whole point. But somewhere out there is a man who truly believed Lager was a dating service. 13. A woman entered a radio contest with a glittering prize, a brand new Toyota. She won. She was thrilled. Then the station handed her the reward. A toy Yoda. A little green Star Wars doll. Toyota. Toyota. Get it? She was not amused. She'd been promised a car and got a puppet worth a few bucks, so she sued for the actual vehicle. And honestly, good. A pun is not a prize. You can't dangle a car and deliver a Jedi keychain. The station learned that wordplay is funny right up until it costs you an entire Toyota. She got her car, Justice delivered. 14. The Times Square. Naked cowboy, the guy who stands around in nothing but underwear, boots, a hat, and a strategically placed guitar, decided he owned that look. So when M&M's ran an ad featuring a blue candy dressed in the same getup, strumming a guitar in his underpants, the cowboy sued. Yes, a man whose entire brand is public near nudity claimed a cartoon chocolate stole his intellectual property. And here's the kicker. The case had enough merit to actually settle. So legally, the naked cowboy outfit is a protected asset. A guitar, some briefs, and a lawsuit. The American dream, truly. 15. Samsung ran an ad set in the future, showing a robot in a blonde wig and a fancy gown standing beside a game show letterboard. Vanna White, the woman who flips letters on Wheel of Fortune, recognized herself and sued. Not because they used her face, not her name. A robot, in a wig, standing near a board. And astonishingly, she won. The court decided the robot evoked her identity strongly enough to count. So now, legally, you can be impersonated by a machine that shares 0 features with you as long as it stands near the right furniture. Vanna White. Too iconic for robots. 16. Someone actually took a court's time to establish with full legal seriousness that the Batmobile is a character, not a prop, not a vehicle. A character, like a person, deserving of copyright protection all on its own. The judge agreed, ruling that Batman's car has such a consistent personality and identity across decades that it legally counts as its own entity. So the car, a car, has more defined legal rights than most background actors. Batman himself would be jealous of the paperwork. Somewhere there's a ruling that treats a fictional vehicle like a living being. And honestly, the Batmobile probably files better taxes than I do. 17. 200 years ago, 2 men went to court over a fox. Not ownership of a farm the fox lived on. The actual fox. One guy was chasing it during a hunt and the other swooped in and killed it first. The first hunter was furious. He'd done the work. So they sued over who legally owned a wild animal mid-chase. And this case, this petty squabble over one dead fox, is now studied by every law student in America. Careers are built on it. Legal theory rests on it. All because 2 grown men couldn't share a woodland creature. Foundational stuff, apparently. 18. A record-breaking home run ball flew into the stands, and 2 fans grabbed it at the exact same moment. One had it in his glove, the other wrestled it loose in the chaos. This ball was worth serious money, so naturally they sued each other. And the judge, clearly out of patience, delivered the parenting move of the century. Sell the ball, split the cash, both of you go home. Solomon-level wisdom applied to grown men fighting over baseball memorabilia. Neither got to keep the trophy. Neither felt like a winner. The lawyers, meanwhile, got their cut and quietly celebrated the 2 adults who couldn't share a souvenir. 19. A man, several drinks deep at a bar, decided to sell his entire farm as a joke. He scribbled the deal on a napkin, laughed, signed it, the whole bit. Comedy gold, right? Except the buyer wasn't joking. He took that greasy napkin to court and demanded the farm. And the court, reading the napkin like a sacred legal document, enforced it. The judge ruled the terms looked serious enough to count, drunk or not. So a man lost his farm because of barstool humor and a pen. The lesson? Never sign anything at a bar, especially not your livelihood on a napkin, for laughs. 20. A wealthy person died and left very specific instructions in their will. Tear down my perfectly good, valuable mansion. Don't sell it. Don't donate it. Bulldoze it into rubble for no reason. And the court, staring at this magnificent waste, actually said no. It refused to honor the will, ruling that senselessly destroying a fine home served nobody and helped no one. So even in death, this person couldn't get their pointless demolition. Turns out you can control a lot from beyond the grave. But destroy something valuable out of spite is where the law politely draws the line. The mansion lived. The dead lost. 21. An uncle made his nephew a deal. Quit drinking, smoking, and gambling until you're 21, and I'll pay you a nice sum. The nephew actually did it. Clean living, no vices, the whole disciplined package. Then the uncle's estate refused to pay, arguing the kid gave up nothing valuable, he just behaved. But the court sided with the nephew. It ruled that giving up your legal right to party is a real sacrifice, so the promise counted as a binding contract. So somewhere, a young man got paid for not having fun. And this case now teaches every law student what actually makes a promise legally enforceable. Sobriety pays. 22. Everyone loves mocking the McDonald's hot coffee lady. She spilled coffee and got rich, what an idiot. Except no. Slow down. The coffee was served at nearly boiling temperature, hot enough to cause third-degree burns in seconds. This woman suffered devastating injuries, needed skin grafts, and was hospitalized for days. She initially just asked McDonald's to cover her medical bills. They refused. Turns out the company knew their coffee had already burned hundreds of people and kept it scalding anyway. So the frivolous lawsuit everyone laughs at? Actually justified. The real joke is how successfully corporate lawyers convinced you to blame a burned grandmother. 23. A man stood on a train platform. Some distance away, workers helped another passenger board a moving train, and in the shuffle, that passenger dropped a package. The package held fireworks. It exploded. The blast knocked over a heavy scale at the far end of the platform, which fell and injured the man. So he sued the railroad. And this bizarre chain reaction, fireworks, a scale, a domino disaster, became the single most famous case in American law about who's actually responsible when weird accidents happen. Every lawyer alive has studied it, all because a stranger's mystery package went boom and toppled some furniture. 24. A man wanted a better hand, some scarring from an old injury, so a surgeon made a bold promise. A 100% perfect hand. Guaranteed. So the man went in expecting flawless. He woke up with a hand that was worse and, charmingly, now covered in hair. Because the surgeon had grafted skin from his chest. So instead of a perfect hand, he got a hairy one. He sued and won damages based on the broken promise. Not the surgery itself, but the guarantee. The lesson doctors everywhere learned that day. Stop promising perfection. Also, maybe check where the skin's coming from. 25. A schoolboy gave a classmate a light, playful kick under the desk. Not a stomp, not an attack, a gentle tap, the kind of thing kids do 100 times a day. Except the other boy had a pre-existing condition, and that tiny kick triggered a serious permanent leg injury. So it went to court, and the kicker was held fully liable for the massive damages, even though he never meant to hurt anyone. This case now teaches every law student a brutal rule. You take your victim as you find them. That harmless little kick became a landmark lesson worth a fortune. Feet cost money, apparently. 26. A cab driver picked up a passenger who turned out to be armed and dangerous. Terrified, the driver leapt out of his own moving taxi to escape the gunman. Smart survival instinct. Except now there's a driverless cab rolling through the streets. The runaway taxi crashed into a mother and her children on the sidewalk, who then sued the driver for abandoning ship. So the courtroom had to untangle a genuinely impossible question. Is it your fault if you flee for your life and your vehicle becomes a rogue missile? The answer got complicated fast. Basically, no good panic goes unpunished. 27. An 83-year-old woman was walking toward an Apple store, saw the entrance, and walked straight into it. Face first into Apple's famously invisible floor-to-ceiling glass wall. So sleek, so minimalist, so completely undetectable to human eyes. She broke her nose and, understandably, sued, arguing the glass was so seamless it was basically a trap. And she had a point. Apple's whole aesthetic is pretend the glass isn't there, which works beautifully until grandma is bleeding on the sidewalk. The case became a small legend about the dangers of design that prioritizes looking cool over, people not smashing their faces open. 28. A kidnapper was holding a couple hostage and cut a deal with them. Help me hide from the cops, and I'll let you live. The couple, being sensible captives, agreed, then immediately alerted the police the second they could. The kidnapper, now caught, was outraged, so he sued them for breach of contract because they promised to hide him and didn't. Let that sink in. A criminal tried to use civil court to enforce a hostage agreement. The court naturally laughed him out of the building because deals made at gunpoint aren't exactly legally binding. But the sheer nerve of suing your own victims? Historic audacity. 29. A man claimed a back injury so severe it left him practically crippled. Couldn't work, couldn't lift, couldn't function. Please send money. Tragic stuff. Except investigators pulled out a camera and caught him on film, cheerfully flipping over a giant boulder. A boulder, the kind of thing a healthy person struggles with. Meanwhile, this crippled man was tossing rocks around like a strongman competition. The footage obliterated his case instantly. There's a special comedy to insurance fraud undone by a person simply being unable to resist showing off. He had one job: stay in bed. Instead, he went full quarry demolition. Brilliant. 30. A man got himself officially named the most litigious person on Earth. He'd filed an absurd number of lawsuits, more than seemingly any human alive. Guinness World Records took notice and gave him the title. So what did this record-breaking sue-happy legend do next? He sued Guinness for calling him litigious. The very act of suing them proved the record entirely correct in real time. It's a perfect, self-completing loop of nonsense. He couldn't even accept the award for suing without suing. At this point, the man wasn't filing lawsuits. Lawsuits were simply his native language. Guinness should have given him a second trophy. 31. A man committed a terrible crime, and his defense team came up with something legendary: blame the junk food. They argued his mental state was wrecked partly by a diet of sugary snacks, and the media ran with it as the infamous Twinkie defense. Suddenly, the whole country pictured lawyers holding up a cream-filled cake as an excuse for violence. Now, the actual legal argument was more nuanced than the nickname suggests. But the myth stuck, and "the Twinkies made me do it" entered history forever. The takeaway everyone remembers: when in doubt, blame dessert. Somewhere a snack cake became an unwilling legal celebrity. 32. A wealthy teenager killed people while driving drunk, and his lawyers debuted an all-time defense. He was too rich. Seriously. They argued the kid was so spoiled, so coddled by wealth, that he'd never learned right from wrong and therefore couldn't be held fully responsible. They called it affluenza, a made-up disease whose only symptom is having too much money and no consequences. And astonishingly, it worked well enough to lighten his sentence. So the lesson to every privileged brat in America: your parents' failure to parent is now a legal shield. Poverty gets you prison. Wealth gets you a diagnosis. Justice, apparently, is priced. 33. Some people have genuinely beaten drunk driving charges with a defense that sounds completely fake. My body makes its own alcohol. It's called autobrewery syndrome, a rare real condition where your gut ferments carbs into alcohol internally, getting you drunk without a single sip. So a person can blow over the limit stone cold sober, having drunk nothing but soda. Courts have actually accepted this, which means somewhere there's a driver who is, biologically, a walking brewery, legally cleared because their stomach threw a party without permission. It's the only excuse where "I swear I didn't drink" is 100% true and still terrifying to everyone nearby. 34. Back in the Salem witch trials, colonists were put on trial and hanged based on spectral evidence, meaning accusers claimed the defendant's ghost or spirit visited them in dreams and visions. That's it. Someone said, "I dreamed her spirit pinched me," and that counted as proof in a court of law. No physical evidence, no witnesses to anything real. Just vibes and nightmares, ending in executions. People genuinely died because their neighbors reported spooky dreams. It's one of the darkest reminders that a courtroom is only as sane as the people running it. Imagine losing your life because someone had a bad sleep and a grudge. 35. A teacher was put on criminal trial for the unspeakable crime of teaching evolution to students. In the famous Scopes monkey trial, it was actually illegal in that state to tell kids humans evolved. So a man faced prosecution for explaining basic science. The trial became a massive national spectacle, a genuine circus, pitting religion against science in a packed, sweltering courtroom. He was technically convicted, though it got overturned later on a technicality. Still, imagine being dragged to court for saying, "We're related to apes." The real monkey business was a legal system prosecuting a teacher for teaching. Education, apparently a punishable offense. 36. In Boston, a giant storage tank holding over 2 million gallons of molasses burst open, unleashing a tidal wave of syrup through the streets. Not a metaphor. An actual towering wall of molasses, moving fast enough to flatten buildings and kill 21 people. Death by dessert topping. The sticky disaster led to one of the earliest big class action lawsuits, forcing the company to pay for building a lethal candy dam with no safety standards. It sounds hilarious until you remember people drowned in it. The molasses flood is history's proof that industrial negligence can arrive in the least threatening, most breakfast-adjacent form imaginable. Terrifying and absurd. 37. There is a genuine United States federal court case, officially titled United States versus approximately 64,695 pounds of shark fins. Yes, the defendant is the fish parts. In these cases, the government sues the object itself, so the paperwork forever reads like America declared legal war on a pile of shark fins. Somewhere, a serious federal judge presided over the case of the people versus some fins. The legal name is permanent. It exists in the record. Lawyers had to argue for and against 32,000 pounds of seafood. It's the kind of title that sounds made up but is 100% real. Government at work. 38. During a wild playoff game, referees blew a call so badly, so obviously, that fans lost their minds, a blatant missed penalty that arguably cost their team a shot at the championship. Most fans yell at the TV and move on, not these ones. Saints fans took the NFL to court over the infamous no call, genuinely trying to get a judge to overturn a football game because the refs missed a flag. And honestly, the rage was justified. It was that bad. But suing a sports league to replay a game is a beautiful, doomed act of pure fan desperation. The lawsuit lost. The bitterness never will. 39. At a baseball game, a team mascot decided to fire hot dogs into the crowd out of an air cannon because nothing says wholesome fun like meat projectiles at high velocity. One flying hot dog nailed a fan directly in the eye, causing a genuine injury. So the man sued, and the courts had to seriously wrestle with whether getting sniped by a mascot's mystery meat is just part of the game you accept by attending. This went far up the legal chain. Real judges debated the assumed risks of encased meat artillery. Only in sports can "I was shot by a sausage" become a legitimate legal question. 40. A man went on a first date to the movies, and his date had the audacity to text throughout the film. Rude, sure. Annoying, absolutely. A normal person sighs and never calls again. This man sued her. For the price of the movie ticket, $17 and change, claiming her texting ruined the experience he paid for. He took a first date to small claims court over the cost of one ticket. Somewhere out there is a woman who dodged the biggest bullet of her life. Imagine escaping a relationship with a man who litigates over pocket change. She should have thanked the judge. 41. A man walked into a White Castle, sat down, and discovered a humbling truth. He couldn't fit in the booths. The seats were bolted too close to the tables, and no amount of wriggling was going to work. So he sued the restaurant, arguing the booths were unusable for someone his size. And honestly, there's a real accessibility point buried in here. But the mental image is pure comedy. A man declaring legal war on furniture that rejected him. He just wanted his tiny burgers in peace, and the booth said no. Somewhere, a White Castle had to explain in court why its seats fought back. 42. A groom hired a photographer for his wedding, and the photos didn't turn out how he wanted. Fine, disappointing, happens. But this man's solution was spectacular. He sued the photographer and demanded enough money to restage the entire wedding, despite the small detail that he and his bride had since divorced. So his legal plan required reassembling a now-broken marriage, re-renting a venue, and forcing his ex-wife to cosplay their doomed wedding day for a redo photo shoot. The past cannot be rebuilt for a better album. The relationship was over, but the man wanted the pictures perfect anyway. Peak, missing the entire point of everything. 43. A man watched the movie Drive, starring Ryan Gosling, expecting, reasonably, lots of driving. The trailer was packed with cars, chases, speed. The actual film? A slow, moody character drama with barely any driving at all. He felt betrayed. So instead of leaving a bad review like a normal human, he sued the film company for false advertising, claiming the trailer promised a car movie and delivered brooding silence. He genuinely tried to make misleading marketing a courtroom matter. Every disappointed moviegoer in history felt this rage, but only this man weaponized it. The verdict: trailers exaggerate, get over it. Cinema's oldest betrayal finally litigated. 44. A man walked into a casino, got blackout drunk on the free drinks they kept pouring, and proceeded to gamble away $500,000 he definitely couldn't afford. Waking up ruined, he did the natural thing, sued the casino for letting him lose while wasted. His argument: "You knew I was hammered and kept taking my money." And weirdly, he had a sliver of a point since casinos deliberately drown gamblers in alcohol. But "I was too drunk to stop myself" is a tough legal sell when you're the one at the table. The house always wins, even when it's arguably the villain. 45. Parents sued McDonald's, blaming the fast food chain for their children becoming obese. The logic: McDonald's made the food so tempting and marketed it so aggressively that the kids couldn't help stuffing themselves. So clearly it's the company's fault. Not, whoever kept driving them there and buying the Happy Meals. It's a genuinely tricky question about corporate responsibility versus personal choice. But the courtroom optics were rough. A parent essentially argued that a clown talked their child into a lifetime of nuggets. The case largely failed. Turns out, the burger made me do it struggles when someone else is holding the car keys. 46. A jury sat in stunned silence as they learned the truth about the Ford Pinto. The car had a dangerous fuel tank that could explode in rear-end crashes. Ford knew, and instead of fixing it, a cheap, simple repair, the company ran the numbers. They literally calculated that paying out lawsuits for burned-up victims was cheaper than the fix, and chose the money. An internal memo priced human lives against a few dollars per car. When that came out in court, the outrage was volcanic. This case became the definition of corporate evil by spreadsheet, a company that mathed its way into deciding your life wasn't worth the repair. 47. A woman bought a hybrid car expecting great gas mileage, and it fell short of the advertised numbers. A big class action lawsuit formed, promising affected owners a payout. The catch being the lawyers would scoop up most of the money while each owner got pocket change. So she did something rebellious. She opted out, marched into small claims court alone, and sued the automaker solo. And she won thousands, far more than the class action crumbs. One woman, no lawyer, beating the system by refusing to join the herd. It's a rare, glorious story of the little person outsmarting both a corporation and the lawyers circling it. 48. A man found a mouse in his bottle of Mountain Dew and sued, understandably grossed out. But the company's defense is the stuff of legend. Their lawyers argued that if a mouse had actually been in that bottle for as long as claimed, the highly acidic soda would have completely dissolved it into a jelly-like goo. So a fully intact mouse proved he must have planted it. Read that again. A major corporation's official legal position was, "Our drink turns rodents into liquid." That's not a defense. That's a confession. They basically admitted their soda is a mouse-melting acid bath. "I'll have the water, thanks." 49. A man ordered a Subway foot-long sandwich, took out a ruler like a true hero of our time, and discovered it measured only 11 inches, 1 inch short of the promised foot. Betrayed by an inch, he sued, and it snowballed into a massive class action case, with lawyers descending to fight over the missing sandwich inch nationwide. Subway eventually had to promise their footlongs would actually be a foot, so a single man with a ruler and a grievance forced a global chain to measure its bread. Petty? Sure. But somewhere, a sandwich was held legally accountable for its length. Truly a triumph for pedants everywhere. 50. A woman sued Starbucks with a bold complaint. Her cold drinks had too much ice. She argued that when they advertise a certain size, all that ice is cheating her out of actual beverage. She's paying for coffee and getting frozen water taking up space. She wanted millions. Now, everyone who's ever gotten a mostly iced drink felt a flicker of solidarity here. But suing over ice in an iced drink is a tough hill to die on, since ice is sort of the whole concept. The case got tossed. Still, somewhere, a courtroom genuinely debated whether ice belongs in iced coffee. Groundbreaking stuff. 51. A man sued over Cap'n Crunch's crunch berries, claiming he'd been deceived because, brace yourself, the crunch berries contain no real berries. He genuinely argued that he believed for years that a cartoon sea captain's sugary cereal contained actual fruit. So he took it to court demanding justice for the berry betrayal. And the judge, with visible exhaustion, basically ruled that no reasonable person thinks crunch berries grow on a bush. The word is made up. The captain is fictional. The berries were never real. Somewhere a lawyer had to argue, straight-faced, about the botanical authenticity of breakfast cereal. The verdict: use your eyes, they're bright red spheres of sugar. 52. A class action lawsuit accused Poland Spring of a watery scandal. The spring water allegedly never came from an actual spring. The claim was that the company was basically bottling ordinary groundwater and slapping a pristine mountain spring image on it, charging premium prices for what might as well be a fancy tap. Millions of people had been sipping nature's purest, thinking of babbling brooks and untouched wilderness. The suit argued it was marketing fiction. Whether or not it fully held up, the mental whiplash is real. That crisp mountain aesthetic possibly hiding a very unglamorous hose. Turns out the only thing guaranteed to be pure was the branding budget. 53. A court ruled that a doctor had no legal duty to save a dying patient who was begging for help. Sit with that. A person was dying, pleading, and the physician walked away. And the law said that was fine, because without an established doctor-patient relationship, there's technically no obligation to act. No duty to rescue. It's one of those rulings that's legally logical and morally horrifying at the same time. A trained healer can watch someone die and face zero consequences purely on a technicality of who counts as their patient. It's a chilling reminder that legal and right are sometimes total strangers. 54. Here's a genuinely useful rule born from a storm. If a vicious tempest is raging and your boat is about to be destroyed, you're legally allowed to tie it to a stranger's dock to survive. Even without permission. You get to save your property. But, and here's the fair twist, if your boat damages that dock in the process, you have to pay for it. So the law lets you trespass to preserve your life and boat, while still making you cover the harm you cause. It's one of those rare rulings that's actually balanced and wise. Survive first, settle the bill after. 55. A man bought a brand new BMW, thrilled with his shiny, flawless luxury car. Then he discovered the dealer's dirty secret. The car had been damaged before sale and secretly repainted to hide it, sold to him as pristine. So he sued, and a jury was so furious at the sneaky repaint that they awarded him millions in punitive damages. Millions. Over a paint job. The case became a landmark fight about how much a court can punish a company for deception. So, a hidden touch-up spiraled into a massive legal precedent. The lesson for dealerships everywhere: hide a scratch, and a jury might repaint your entire bank account. 56. A 5-year-old pulled a chair out from under an elderly woman as she went to sit down, classic little kid mischief, and she fell and got seriously hurt. So, the tiny child was held legally liable for battery, a kindergartner, in a courtroom. Legally responsible for an intentional harm because the law decided that even a 5-year-old can intend the act of moving a chair, regardless of understanding the consequences. So a child barely old enough to tie their shoes became a defendant. It's now a classic law school case about intent. Somewhere, a preschooler had a longer legal record than most adults. Justice knows no nap time. 57. A man bought a cow that was sold to him as barren, unable to breed, and priced cheaply because of it, basically good only for beef. Then, surprise, the cow turned out to be pregnant, making her worth far, far more than he paid. When the seller realized the mistake and wanted her back, it went to court. The whole sale unraveled over the question of whether both parties were wrong about the fundamental nature of what they traded. This pregnant cow became a cornerstone case about mutual mistake in contracts. So an entire branch of legal theory basically rests on one very fertile, very valuable cow. 58. Way back in 1917, a famous fashion designer, Lady Duff Gordon, made a deal giving one man the exclusive right to market her endorsements. Then she went behind his back, endorsing products herself and pocketing the money, arguing their contract didn't actually promise him anything specific. So he sued, and the court delivered a foundational ruling. Even when a contract doesn't spell everything out, both sides owe each other a good faith effort to make it work. This became the very first big celebrity endorsement legal fight, shaping how every sponsorship deal works today. So the next time an influencer hawks a product, thank a sneaky countess from over a century ago. 59. Long ago, a printer was hauled into court and charged with libel for publishing something critical about those in power. Here's the insane part. At the time, it didn't matter if what he printed was true. Truth was no defense. You could be punished for accurate criticism just for embarrassing the powerful. But the jury, in a bold act of rebellion, acquitted him precisely because what he wrote was true. This shattered the old rule and helped plant the roots of press freedom in America. So a single printer's trial helped establish that you can't be jailed for telling the truth. Kind of a big deal. 60. A company went to court and successfully trademarked a color, specifically the bright red sole on the bottom of a certain designer's high heels. That's right, you can now legally own a color, at least in a specific context. So if you slap that same red on the bottom of your shoes, you could get sued for stealing a shade. A shade. The concept that a brand can lay legal claim to red is both impressive and slightly deranged. Somewhere a lawyer successfully argued that a particular red belongs to one fashion house. Crayola should be terrified. The rest of the rainbow is up for grabs. 61. A toy company sued over the catchy pop song Barbie Girl, furious that the band mocked their precious plastic icon. They claimed it damaged the brand and confused customers. So it went to court, a serious legal battle over a bubblegum song about a doll. And the judge's ruling is legendary. After weighing everything, he essentially told both sides to grow up, famously ending his opinion by telling the parties to chill. An actual judge, in an official legal document, told a toy giant to relax. It's the perfect response to a corporation suing over a song. Somewhere that ruling is framed. The Barbie song won. 62. Two tech giants spent years and a fortune in court fighting over, and I cannot stress this enough, the rounded corners on phones. The shape of the corners. One company claimed the other stole the design of making rectangles slightly curvy at the edges, and this exploded into a billion-dollar legal war. Billion, with a B. Armies of lawyers argued passionately about the intellectual property of not sharp corners. Meanwhile, every phone on Earth has rounded corners because sharp ones would stab your leg. So the world's smartest engineers went to battle over geometry a toddler understands. Truly the pinnacle of what human ambition can achieve. 63. Multiple businesses went to legal war over who owns the phrase Taco Tuesday. That's it. Two ordinary words describing the noble act of eating tacos on a Tuesday became a fiercely contested piece of intellectual property. One chain had trademarked it and spent years threatening anyone who dared advertise cheap tacos on the wrong day of the week. So small taquerias were getting legal threats for celebrating Tuesday. Eventually, the trademark got challenged and freed, letting everyone say the sacred phrase again. But imagine the meeting where lawyers decided to own a day-of-the-week food pun. Somewhere, tacos wept. Tuesday belongs to the people now. 64. Drinkers sued Fireball, the cinnamon whiskey, after learning it contained an ingredient also used in antifreeze. Cue the panic. People imagining they'd been chugging shots of engine coolant at parties. The lawsuit argued they weren't properly warned. Now, in fairness, the ingredient shows up in tons of foods in tiny safe amounts, so it's not quite antifreeze in a bottle. But the same stuff that keeps your car from freezing is in your party shots, is a rough sentence to read the morning after. So the courts got to referee a fight about whether your cinnamon buzz doubled as light automotive maintenance. Cheers, I guess. 65. During the chaotic trial of the Chicago 7, the defendants turned the courtroom into pure theater. Some showed up wearing judicial robes to openly mock the judge, a genuine power move. But it escalated to something shocking. One defendant was actually bound and gagged in the courtroom, chained and silenced in front of everyone because the judge couldn't control him. A defendant, physically muzzled during his own trial. It became a searing image of a justice system in crisis. So this trial gave us both grown men cosplaying as the judge to insult him, and a man literally chained and gagged. Order in the court, apparently, was optional. 66. Red Bull, the energy drink whose entire slogan promised it gives you wings, was forced to pay out millions because, shocking absolutely no one, it does not in fact give you wings. A lawsuit argued the marketing tricked people into expecting real boosts in energy and performance that the drink didn't deliver. So Red Bull settled, paying customers for the crushing disappointment of remaining flightless. Somewhere people got a refund for not sprouting wings. The best part is imagining a lawyer arguing with a straight face that customers genuinely expected aviation from a can of sugar water. No wings were issued. Dreams were shattered. Justice, technically, served. 67. Skechers paid around $40 million over its toning shoes. Sneakers the company claimed would tone your muscles, burn fat, and shape your body just from walking around in them. No gym, no effort, just magic shoes doing the work. Turns out, unsurprisingly, that footwear cannot sculpt your glutes through the sheer power of existing. The claims were bogus, and the lawsuits piled up. So Skechers had to refund a nation of people who genuinely believed sneakers were a workout. The dream was beautiful, get fit by shopping. The reality was $40 million, and a lesson that shoes are, tragically, just shoes. 68. In a genuinely surreal case, the world's whales and dolphins essentially sued the president over Navy sonar that was allegedly harming marine life. Yes, the plaintiffs were, in spirit, the ocean's mammals. Environmental lawyers filed on their behalf, arguing the deafening sonar disrupted and injured the creatures. So the official case pitted sea life against the commander-in-chief. Somewhere in the legal record, whales versus the leader of the free world is a real docket entry. The animals didn't sign anything, obviously, but the framing is spectacular. It's the closest we've come to Flipper taking the government to court. The dolphins, sadly, did not testify. 69. Two guys claimed they came up with the idea for the wildly famous Taco Bell Chihuahua, the little dog that said, "Yo quiero Taco Bell," and became a national obsession. They pitched it, the company allegedly used it without paying them, and the ad campaign made a fortune. So they sued and won around $42 million for their tiny talking dog concept. $42 million for a Chihuahua. So somewhere, two men became fabulously wealthy because they imagined a small dog craving fast food. It's proof that one goofy idea, properly defended in court, can be worth more than most people earn in several lifetimes. 70. The descendants of the woman who modeled for the Aunt Jemima brand sued for $2 billion in unpaid royalties. Their argument, their relative's image and likeness helped build a massively profitable brand for generations, and the family never got a fair share of the fortune her face helped create. $2 billion is a staggering number, reflecting just how much money was made off that image over the decades. Whatever the case's legal fate, it forced a real reckoning with who profits from a person's likeness long after they're gone. A face on a syrup bottle, it turns out, can carry a billion-dollar question of justice. 71. A man sued Bank of America for, take a deep breath, $1,784 billion trillion. That's a number so massive it wildly exceeds all the money that exists on the entire planet, several times over. There isn't that much wealth in human history. There isn't that much wealth if you counted every coin, bill, and asset on Earth. But this man looked at his grievance and decided the appropriate compensation was more money than reality contains. You have to respect the sheer commitment to going big. Somewhere, a court clerk read that figure and just stared. It's the perfect finale. A lawsuit demanding infinity dollars from a bank. And there you have it. 71 lawsuits proving that no idea is too ridiculous for an actual courtroom. But now I've got to ask you, which one was the dumbest? Was it the guy suing God? The man demanding infinity dollars? Or the woman who sued over ice being cold? Drop your pick in the comments. I read them, and the wildest answer gets pinned. If any of these made you laugh, snort, or lose a little faith in humanity, Smash that like button and subscribe to Dumbest Things because trust me, the world is never running out of stupid. I'll see you in the next one.